So I am going to talk about confirmation bias and organizational risk. And the reason we're talking about that is because I wrote a paper on it last fall for my master's program. So I'm going to share the paper. So what we're talking about. So we're going to look at some decision making. We're going to look at what is confirmation bias and understanding your risks. So for me, I'm an IT guy. I handle IT risks. I got to look at what my biases are when I'm evaluating an IT system. Your mileage varies on depending where you work in. If you're a director, you're working on budget or policy. If you're a reference desk or doing something with resources, you might prefer one resource over another. So everything has a risk. Not every risk is a huge consequence, but you should be aware of it. So we make countless decisions every day. Everything we decide that we have to decide something. And there's a risk to it. Am I going to eat? Am I not going to eat? Am I going to go hungry? Lunch can be great. I think you will. And then on the psychology side of things. So decision making has two systems: system one, system two. System one is fast. System one, you're not thinking. You just instantly. You have to make a decision. Boom, you make it. System two is the one is where you're going through and you're researching it, and you're thinking it out, and you're going to do I do A or B? And you need information. We all make our decisions based on information that we have received all through our lives. And as Ryan pointed out in his earlier presentation, the stream is not consistent for all of us. We all get different information. Our Google searches are all different. Everything is different. So that's just something to keep in mind. But whatever your input is might be so very different. And then if you're working in group conversations, groupthink is an issue. Coworkers can be influencing your decisions. Your staff can be influencing your decisions. So these all go into your decision-making process. So groupthink, which, it's nice working group, but there are some dangers with groups. You always have someone who's very dominating in a group, and that might take maybe somebody who has a different opinion, and they might feel timid to share a different opinion with the rest of the group. So you always have that when you're working for a group. The intimidations. Sometimes groups might not even be diverse to begin with. So it might just pick a bunch of people, they all think the same. Again, that's reinforcing a confirmation bias. You're like, I'm not picking someone because, they're going to say something I don't like. And that's confirmation bias right there. You're finding people just to confirm what you already think you know or don't know. So judgment trigger. So we talked about, so system one is that quick actions. So board wants a new policy in 2 hours. Buy a database next 30 minutes or you lose the deal. Do I click on a link on this email saying I only have 10 minutes or my account is locked? So great. Those are your, system one decisions. So it's at best try not to get pushed into a quick decision. So that's our quick detour, on the IT side of things. When we get phishing emails, you want to take a guess? That's what I said. That's a system one decision. People make phishing emails. They're trying to make you act without thinking, and even triggering your emotions or scaring you or intimidating you. So again, this is where this is from an IT side of things. This is where some of the things I got to look at and try to educate people on that. Beware of these decision makings and think about these things. So information. We're surrounded by it. Again, I loved Ryan's presentation earlier because not all the information is great information. And then going back into those age groups of trying to figure out what's real, what's not, what's a legit source. So that's all poured into that, and that all feeds into confirmation bias. And that is somebody going out researching something, and as you talk about some of the different age groups, they get it from their peers, people they trust. So that's reinforming their confirmation, like, I believe this, and then my friend says that too, so I'm going with that. So, and they're not looking for opposing viewpoints. They're always, usually, and so it's when it comes to decision making, try to reach out, look for someone who's different, who has an opposing viewpoint. For me, I'm a Linux guy. I love Linux. I hate Windows. Well, I admit that's my bias. So I do have to look past it sometimes, and when someone say about Windows or a Windows application. So, but everybody has a bias. You lean towards something in different areas of your life. You have a belief on something, and you might gather information to reaffirm your bias. So always try to figure it out. So again, IT, I might hate a company over another one, but then every so often I need to go back and look past my own bias against the company and see where they're at with their products, and does what my current thinking line up to what the reality is. Again, and that's also coming back to the organizational risks. So now I'm making organizational decisions on software and companies. So I need to look past my own bias against somebody. Is that good for the organization or not? Again, you all have different jobs, you all have different positions, the same thing. You might like one company over another. Is that a legit feeling or not? It's just kind of questioning yourself a little bit and just understanding your judgments. So auditors can kind of fall into confirmation bias. Now, mostly people think it's financial auditors, but in some big companies, you have auditors like looking at policies overall or looking at your organization. And in my paper I found there was actually studies done about auditors. And they found that if an auditor kind of liked your company, you kind of got a good audit. But at the opposite side, the risk for the organization went up because the auditor's not really evaluating your company correctly. They wanted to give a good audit. Opposite's true. They don't like your company, you're going to get a bad audit, even though maybe you don't have any risks. It's find that neutral. Find the new auditors that were neutral, were able to do the right searches to evaluate the risks. But it's a hard thing. And there's training, apparently. Auditors can go through training on these things. There's policies, but we're all human beings. We're not machines. So it's just being aware of them. So the dangers to an organization for confirmation bias is if you don't realize it, you don't realize you don't have if you're biased, you could be making some bad decisions. You be picking wrong vendors. Maybe you're misjudging a budget. Maybe if you're circulation desk and you have a patron, maybe there's something you're misjudging about that patron that could be dangerous or not. Physical spaces, maybe you're like, oh, that building's fine, we don't need to really worry about the roof, and then the roof falls off a month later. So, but your bias would be, oh, that roof's been there forever, it's fine. So how do you prevent it? So number one, be aware it's there. This year, if be aware of the problem. And just try to follow good judgment. If you make, try to go more stage 2 if you can, and back up your decision. Why did you choose A over B? Debate, for healthy debate. Something I don't know we've lost sometimes, but just find people with different opinions, different perspectives, get their input. Challenge your own thinking. Like I said, I've talked about already. I have to challenge my thinking sometimes in IT stuff. Companies, Windows, Linux, web servers. I'm always constantly trying to think of challenging my thinking on that. And then evidence, why, that's always good. Get the documentation, but also get documentation on opposing viewpoints. It's really easy to go out and find something that will back up your own thinking, but try to find something else against it and then make a decision based off of that without discounting it offhand. And then I don't believe in confirmations. And back, I just read an article that said doesn't believe in either. So, and so when you right now, a lot of us are in our jobs, we're acting on behalf of our organizations. So it's just important to think about these biases and our judgments when we're coming across, what we decide can affect our organizations for 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And there's always a risk to what we decide or not decide. And it's at all levels, entry level to upper management. Everybody, every decision affects the organization in some way. and the risks. That is it for me.